Good afternoon, everyone. I am Raul Quetzal Arfabian.
I am Florencio N. Pulido III.
And I am Jericho Tabingo Laga.
So let's get started. I love you virus. It is the most devastating computer virus in history. It has around 20 to 50 billion in damages, created by Onel de Guzman from Philippines and released on May 5, 2000. It happened due to the feature of Microsoft 2000 that a feature that removes the file extension of some files so that it will be user friendly. While it may seem the intentions of the company is pure, some programmers or some hackers exploit this and created some viruses, thus created the most prominent virus or dubbed as I love you.text.vbs. So let's watch a video on how the I love you virus work.
For myself. It is currently Friday, May 5th, 2000. On my computer, I am running Windows 2000, and on my desktop, I have included some files for the virus to overwrite. I have an audio file, which is completely functional, and just a standard image. I'm going to open my Microsoft Outlook and check my email. Looks like I have something in my inbox. Well, this looks interesting. Kindly check the attached love letter coming from me. I guess someone wants to share some undisclosed feelings that they have about me. Let's go ahead and download that. As you can see, if I turn off the default setting to hide file extensions, the .vbs is here very clearly. But since I have it turned on, I have no idea. This is just an ordinary text file, and I'm curious to see what's inside. As you can now see, everyone in my contact list has now been sent a copy of the script. In addition, the files that I showed you earlier have now been overwritten. They're gone. Even if I revert back to the original file extension, nothing. You can probably see why this was such an issue for businesses, as important files would be permanently erased and could only be recovered from a backup if they were so lucky. As mentioned earlier, this virus would only hide some files rather than overwrite them, specifically audio files. As you can see, our MP3 is perfectly fine, just locked away. So, if you were a music producer, you had a much easier way out of this. Remember when I told you that this virus was known for being easily modifiable? Well, I will show you just how simple it is to access the source code. All you have to do is right-click and select Edit. The rest is at your fingertips. Many other programmers who were also emailed the virus could send out their own version, and that's exactly what they did. Some of them showed absolutely no mercy, and rather than destroying files, destroyed the entire operating system. If we replace JS and JSE with EXE and COM, these files will be replaced with the worm. Let's go ahead and restart, shall we? That's too bad. This is not going to be a cheap fix.
So that's how the I love you virus works. And let's now proceed to our main agenda of this reporting. So our objectives: number 1, differentiate worm and virus. Number 2, know the types of computer virus. Number 3, know the types of computer worms. And number 4, know how a device can be infected by worms or virus. First, differentiate worm and virus. So malware or malicious software refers to all code and applications written to harm devices or the people who use them. It's important to know that malware includes virus, worm, trojans, ransomware, and many other more. It is also reported by the previous reporters. Thus, virus and worm are just part of malware. So let's watch a video about how virus and worm works.
Viruses, worms, trojans, and bots are all part of a class of software called malware. The overwhelming majority of malware is created to make money illegally, often by stealing sensitive and confidential information from victims' computers and mobile devices. Malware can also be used for cyber vandalism, cyber espionage, hacktivism, cyber warfare, and various other reasons. Malware can make entry onto your computer via questionable file downloads, visiting infected websites, or through email containing a seemingly benign link or attachment. Common types of malware. Viruses. Almost all viruses are attached to an executable file. which means the virus may exist on a system but will not spread until a user opens the infected program. Viruses often originate on the internet and spread when downloading a file infected with a virus, peer-to-peer file sharing, or email attachments. Worms can replicate themselves and infect multiple computers on a network, causing major damage. Network worms often use computer networks to spread, slowing down traffic and relying on security failures such as outdated operating systems and no antivirus programs installed. In contrast, viruses require the spreading of an infected host file. Worms are a standalone software and do not require a host or human help to spread. The best way to protect your system from malware is to keep your operating system clean by downloading regular patches, updates, and making sure that your computer is protected by the latest antivirus software from a trusted vendor.
The virus. A virus is a fragment of code embedded in a legitimate program that can be harmless or can modify or delete data. Viruses are self-replicating and are designed to infect other programs. They can wreak havoc in the system by modifying or destroying files, causing system crashes and program malfunctions. A virus lays dormant in your system until you execute it or take some other required actions. Please note that it has no effect if not activated. For the virus to be activated, someone has to trigger with an external action or run the file. Once activated, the virus inserts its codes into the program on your device to help copy itself, corrupt your files, damage device performance, and spread to additional devices.
Now, another malware is worm. A worm is a form of malware that replicates itself and can spread to different computers via its network. It replicates itself more and more to slow down the computer system. Eventually, it will make the system slow in speed to such an extent that it stops responding. So with a worm, there's no need for the victim to open up any files or even click anything. Create clone of itself independently and autonomously. Sorry. You can get a worm in your unprotected computer just because it is on the same network as another infected device. Worms can potentially destroy or damage data on infected systems, but not all worms are designed to do so. The primary goal of a worm is to spread itself to as many systems as possible, and some worms may be designed to perform other malicious activities, such as stealing data or installing other malwares.
So in summary, viruses requires the help of a host, while worms can act independently or spread themselves independently. Let's now proceed with the types of computer virus, and so Polito, please take over.
Viruses, we have 9 major types of viruses, namely the boot sector virus, web scripting virus, browser hijacker, resident virus, direct action virus, polymorphic virus, file infector virus, multi-partite virus or macro virus. Next, for a boot sector virus is a program that corrupts the sector responsible for booting the operating system, making the computer unusable. Web scripting virus. A web scripting virus is a type of malware that infects websites by exploiting vulnerabilities in web scripts, allowing attackers to execute code on a user's browser or gain access to sensitive information. It spreads through email attachments, phishing scams, and compromised website, and can also propagate to other computers through vulnerable web browsers or plugins. To prevent infection, it is essential to keep web scripts and softwares up to date, use strong authentication methods, and monitor website traffic for suspicious activities. Next is the browser hijacker. It is a virus that can change the setting of your browser and will hijack browser favorites, the homepage URL, your search preferences, and redirect you to a malicious site. The site could be a phishing site or an adware page used to steal data or make money for the attacker. Uh, um, for example, if you want to go to google.com, your browser automatically brings you to Yahoo Mail or any other search engines without you knowing. Uh, Next, a resident virus. A virus that can access computer memory and sit dormant until a payload is delivered is considered a resident virus. This malware may stay dormant until a specific date, time, or a user performs an action. Next is a direct action virus. It is a virus, a type of computer virus that attaches itself to a specific file or program and executes its code when the infected file is opened or executed. It does not infect other files or programs on the computer but replicates itself whenever the infected file is executed or accessed. Next is the polymorphic virus. A polymorphic virus is a type of computer virus that can change its code and appearance every time it replicates, making it difficult to detect and remove with traditional antivirus softwares. Next is the file infector virus. A file infector virus is a type of computer virus that infects executable files such as .exe or .com files by attaching its code to the file. And when the infected file is executed, the virus code is also executed, allowing it to spread to other files and potentially cause damage to the system. Next is the multipartite virus. These malicious programs spread across a network or other systems by copying themselves or injecting code into critical computer resources. It is a type of virus of a computer virus that can infect both the boot sector and the executable files on a system. It can spread through various means such as, again, email attachments, infected software downloads, or compromised websites. Macrovirus is a type of
Next.
computer virus that infects documents and spreadsheets that contain macros, such as Microsoft Word or Excel. Macros are small programs that automate repetitive tasks and are commonly used in office software. Yes, let's move forward to the types of computer worms. Kuya Jericho?
Now, what are the types of worms? Here we have internet worm, email worm, file sharing worm, crypto worm, and instant messaging worm. Now for the internet worm, um, suppose you are browsing a website, a very popular site. Little do you know that this website actually has a weak security. Frequently visited sites with low security level are likely to be infected with malware such computer worms. Now, whether you are using your PC or mobile phones, this computer you are using to access the site will acquire a copy of a computer worm that is infecting the site you are visiting. Such computer worms are called internet worms. As the name suggests, it is a type of worm you'll get from the internet, specifically by accessing an infected site, thus internet worm. Next is the email worm. Now, most of us are very familiar with being reminded to be careful in opening an email, especially when we do not know the sender. But whether we know or we do not know the sender, we should be careful with opening an attachment sent to us via email, as this is how the so-called email worm spread. Email worm spreads through email attachment, and this starts to self-replicate once we open the infected file. Next is the file sharing worm. Now, this is closely related with email worm, but file sharing is worm does not have to be associated with electronic email, electronic mail. One example is a shared folder in OneDrive. Once this infected file folder is opened, the worm will get to the system of the computer accessing the folder. So imagine if one file folder shared with multiple users. All the users will soon get infected with the file sharing worm. Next is crypto worm. Now, another interesting computer worm is the crypto worm. So this type of worm utilizes strong encryption and can only be removed by cryptographic tools. Typically, money is demanded in exchange of a key. This type of worm or a malware is an example of ransomware. This is typically done by hackers to get money from victims, money in exchange for important files of the victims. This is a very serious issue, and we shall not fall for it, um, as there is no guarantee of getting the data back. Next is the instant messaging worm. So this type of worm resides on a chat server. These worms are like computer worms, except that they spread through various instant messaging networks because of loopholes in the network. Instant messaging worms are masked by attachment or links, which the worm continues to spread to the infected user's contact list. The only difference is that instead of arriving in an email, it comes as an instant message on a chat service. So that's
Thank you
it
for that.
for.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jericho. Let's now proceed to how to get infected by worms and viruses. How do viruses and worms spread? These are the most common ways: email, security vulnerabilities, peer-to-peer file sharing, and malvertising. Email. It is the most popular delivery method for malware. As you can observe, all types of viruses and worms have an email specification on how they will be transmitted. Also, the I love you virus shown earlier comes from email. Security and vulnerabilities. Developers sometimes accidentally leave vulnerabilities in their code, which hackers exploit to insert malware into your system. For example, some companies and hackers try to constantly uh, send virus or worms or trojans on any other types of malwares in their computer system in attempt to gain knowledge or data on how their company works. If they get those data, they will, of course, sell them or threaten the company for disclosing that important intel. Next, peer-to-peer file sharing. If you download music, you'll experience that downloading music from internet and untrusted websites, also downloading games. So be aware because some of those files may contain viruses, which when you install those games or play those music, it will eventually destroy your system, or worse, it will render your device useless. Next, advertising. We all know some websites that even you don't click those ads, it will redirect you to another website and start downloading anything without your knowledge. So beware because those websites or files can do harm to your devices if you are vulnerable. So you can prevent this by installing antivirus use use VPN and firewall in your internet security. Next, these are the most common differences of virus and worm. If a virus introduced to an unprotected hub and spoke network or a ring network, users will still have to send the virus to each other and then open the file for each computer in the network to get infected. So just like what I said earlier, when a virus go through your company, and one should execute the file before it will it will run. So let's say I am infected and I'll click the virus, automatically there's a protocol that will send those viruses to you. The virus will have no effect to your computer unless you run those files or executed them. So worm, since it doesn't need a host, one worm has the power to infect the entire network and branching networks if the devices are unprotected slash vulnerable. As you can observe from the graphical representation, a worm is infected and multiply itself, thus causing system failure in that computer. If the computer is connected to a network or a Wi-Fi or a LAN, the worm will constantly find a way to your other devices, and if it is vulnerable or unprotected, the worms can repeat the same process over and over again until your whole system of networks are infected. So if you are protected, so you are safe from those worms, and also be aware of public Wi-Fi's if you don't have antivirus or your system is not updated. So here are the common symptoms of having a virus or worms in your computer or your device. And so Pulido, please take over.
For the common symptoms of having a virus, you'd have pop-up windows linking to malicious websites. It will hamper your computer performance by slowing it down. After booting, starting off unknown programs will be observed, and passwords get changed without your knowledge. However, moving forward, so worms, it will hamper also your computer performance by slowing it down, and automatic opening and running of programs will be observed. Sending of emails without your knowledge, and a worm will affect the performance of your web browsers. And of course, an error message concerning to system and operating system will pop up. For the preventive measures, Kuya Jericho.
Now for the preventive measures, in case of virus, installation of antivirus software. Never open email attachments. Avoid usage of pirated software. Keep your operating system updated. Keep your browser updated as old versions are vulnerable to linking to malicious websites. Now for worms, keep your operating system in an updated state. Avoid clicking on links from untrusted or unknown websites. Avoid opening emails from unknown sources. Use antivirus software and a firewall.
To summarize, a virus is a malicious executable code attached to another executable file, which can be harmless or can modify or delete data. A worm is a form of malware that replicates itself and can spread to different computers via network. The main objective of a virus is to modify the information. Moving forward, the main objective of a worm is to eat system resources. It consumes system resources such as memory and bandwidth, and made the system slow in speed to such an extent that it stops responding.
Now, in terms of interface or host, the virus requires a host um, needed for the spreading. It needs human actions to replicate, while the worms, it doesn't need a host to replicate from one computer to another. It does not need human action to replicate.
As an iteration, virus need host, need a person, or you need to run a file, while worms, once it infected you, they can self-replicate autonomously and independently throughout your network. So if you can see sometimes some resources interchange virus and worms, or say that worms are just upgraded virus and worms can be trojans or ransomware and such. However, these malwares are just the characteristics overlap to each other, since most of the hackers nowadays or exploiters nowadays try to implement new behaviors of viruses and worms that cannot be detected by the antivirus system of your computers. Thus, you can see some behaviors of virus and worms alike.
That's it for the report of Group 4. Again, we are reminding you to please keep your systems updated, keep your antivirus up to date so that the infection of a virus and worms will be avoided. Again, I'm Florencio and Pulido III.
I am Ralph and Salar Fabian.
And I am Jericho Tabingo Lagang.
Thank you very much.